In these uncertain economic times, it's easy to be worried about protecting your wealth, your hard-earned savings, and your family's financial future. Plunging interest rates, the devaluating dollar, and political unrest constantly threaten what you have worked hard to earn and all that you own. That's why now it's more important than ever to protect your assets and have the money you need to make your dreams come true. Welcome to the Global Wealth Fortress Report with successful global entrepreneur and wealth preservation expert Joel Nagel. Joel's helped thousands of people just like you protect what you have so that you can make even more and make your every dream come true. So, sit back and enjoy Joel Nagel's offshore expert advice on how you can live the good life at a great price, where the sun never sets on your financial fortress.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Global Wealth Fortress Report. I'm Joel Nagel, coming to you live today from the island of Ambergris Caye, Belize. I'm at the Grand Bayman, where I've been broadcasting this past week. My very special guest today is Patrick Hebert, the Chief Operating Officer of ECI Development. Patrick is Canadian.
I am.
So welcome to the show here. I know I'll frequently get people saying, oh, you always talk with Americans and about American issues. So let's start with you, Patrick. How did you end up here in Belize?
Well, I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version. I grew up in central Canada, a province called Manitoba, and kind of farming community area. Pretty simple life in that area, and then spent most of my career, adult life on the coast in Vancouver, Victoria, Vancouver Island area. So ended up there, loved the mountains and the ocean. There wasn't much of that in the prairies of Canada. So, got into different things and sailing and that sort of thing. And then still didn't like the Canadian winters all that much.
Imagine that.
So even on the coast is kind of the same climate, I guess, as Seattle, So you either like rain or you don't. And so I started looking. I had started a software company, and I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to make that succeed and work through that, and started a second one. And when they were both acquired just right before going public, and so had a chance to spend a bit more time with my young family at the time, but wanted to do it in a bit nicer climate. So we came down to Central America and looked at a number of countries, and I think in the end, every country has a lot of benefits and a lot of great things about it. In the end, we kind of decided at that time that it was best for us to just sort of not make permanent home in one place, but spend time in here where we are now in Belize, sometime in Nicaragua, sometime in Costa Rica, sometime in Panama, and then that's worked out a bit of a by today's terms a bit of a digital nomad since then, and my kids are now back in Canada, living there in British Columbia, but down here a large portion of the time because part of their life was spent down here. So.
And you mentioned the weather factor. It's just starting to turn cold in North America, and the first snowbirds who are showing up, they all seem to be Canadian. So just in the few in the last week or 10 days or so since I've been here in Belize, it seems like the number of folks coming in are disproportionately Canadian. So talk just for a minute about what it's like as a Canadian to live here, specifically in Belize, and even more specifically San Pedro.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to go back to your Canadian snowbirds coming down already, and you're right, that it's the Canadians this time of year. A lot of my Facebook friends are already posting pictures of snow, and it's funny, I'm coming over here to talk with you today, and living in Belize, been living in Central America for almost 15 years, and I still get that urge at this time of year subconsciously to put a jacket on before I go outside. So it's kind of a strange thing, but there's obviously it's 29, 30 degrees outside Celsius, whatever, 90, 85 to 90 Fahrenheit. There's no reason for a jacket, and I don't even really own one anymore, but I still get this strange feeling I should put one on. But I mean, it's Belize is interesting, specifically Belize in Central America as being the only English-speaking country. my wife is actually from Ecuador, and so I live with a Spanish English speaker, and I should be better at speaking Spanish, but I get by in the other countries just fine speaking English and a little bit of Spanish. But it's certainly a lot easier here in Belize for Canadians to come down and feel at home. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. The currency kind of feels similar. The common law is very much the same.
You have the Queen on the money, all that.
Exactly. A lot of the same things that, I can't remember what it was. We were talking about something yesterday, and somebody was trying to explain this in Belizean law. I said, "Oh yeah, no, I get it. It's exactly the same as Canada." So there's a lot of that comfort feeling. It doesn't, it feels like. I mean, Canada is. Ever since I was a child, Canada's talked about, we're gonna get a tropical province. I mean, like Trinidad was applying or something at one point, and that sort of thing. But Belize kind of fills that check box and is, without being a Canadian province or related country, it still has the Commonwealth background and really feels comfortable for Canadians.
So it's really comfortable for Canadians to really live here and spend time here.
Exactly. It just feels like a warm Caribbean sandy island of Canada, except the warmth is the key part.
You mentioned you sort of have this nomad tendency and like to move around, and I guess that's why you're a very good fit for ECI development, because it has projects all around the region. From a business standpoint, maybe talk about why it's good to have the regional business headquarters here in Belize.
Well, again, with the English speaking part of that is a big part. We're close to everywhere here. Really good flight connections. You're also close to the U.S. One of the countries that we deal in with the shortest flights to the U.S. Your pool of employees and staff is pretty good here. And some countries, Belize has done a good job of having higher level of education than some countries. So we can draw a lot from that, and just having the office here is worked out really well. So.
Now, I know one of the things you really spend a lot of your time on has been the development and creation of tiny home communities. Could you just explain that and then talk about the different tiny home communities here in Belize and in some of the other countries around the region?
Sure. First of all, ECI has become the de facto standard in terms of creating tiny home eco-communities. And I can explain a little bit about that, but let me explain a little bit about how I got there myself. I mentioned I sold a software company, and first thing I thought you do when you're one of those .com guys is buy a sports car, buy a big home, and those sorts of things, which I did. But soon found out that having a home and having all that space didn't really make me happy. Right? It was just more stress, more things to take care of, more things to go wrong. So eventually, this was happening in Canada, and I downsized in Canada to a smaller home, and then downsized into a condominium, and then eventually downsized into living in a boat. And of all the places I've ever lived in my life, I really enjoyed living on a boat. And so, the thing about this was a sailboat in the ocean, and so the thing about that is you don't have a long extension cord to the shoreline. So you learn very quickly to not only conserve power, water, and those sorts of things, but you need to generate it as well. So I quickly got into sustainability and kind of the eco-friendly side of things. And I like to call myself, kind of coined the term, eco-sensible. I don't think, I know everybody wants to have a smaller footprint and be a good Earth citizen, but I think that comes with, it has to come with a financial benefit or another benefit as well, other than just a feel-good benefit. So I've always liked the concept of sustainability from the standpoint of I don't like to pay a power bill and those sorts of things. But at the same time, gray water reuse is great for both reasons, right? You're doing good things for the planet, and you're also saving on your water. And so the two pieces have to come together for me, and that's what I really spent a lot of time researching 20 years ago and getting into that. And so then when I first spent time in Nicaragua at the ECI Grand Pacifica property there, we developed a community within Grand Pacifica called Milagro Verde, and that means green miracle, so the green obviously being from the eco-friendly part of it. And these were bigger homes. They weren't downsized homes. They were 3,500 square foot type of homes. But learned a lot about the whole eco-friendly side of things, solar systems, wind systems, and gray water reuse and all that. So that's where it really kind of came together, because people were saying, oh, it's nice on a boat, but you can't do it in real life. And so partly I wanted to prove that you could. So we created an off-grid community within a community that had a grid. So there was no particular reason to do that, other than people also like the idea of not having a power bill and those sorts of things. And it became very popular very quickly, and it was outselling what we would consider the regular homes. And then the natural transition was was just as I was becoming more minimalist, I wanted to downsize some of these things and make them more compact. And the beauty of Central America too is the climate. Again, we talked about that. So you don't really need all those big spaces in a house, right? You don't need the great rooms and things like that, because you're outside most of the time. So that's kind of the transition that got from where we started to where we are today. And when we're building tiny home eco communities here in Belize. This is a really special one. This is over the water. You'll see those in pictures of Tahiti and that kind of thing, but that's not very common, strangely enough, in the Caribbean. In fact, very rare. Part of that is the environmental side of things, and we've just gone through a very stringent environmental compliance role here, and we've become the Department of Environment in Belize's kind of standard for what you need to do to build these types of homes. So we're pretty excited and very proud of that we're leading the way on the environmental side as well here in Belize. But we also have these communities coming up in Nicaragua and in Panama, and then in the future shortly here in Mexico, Argentina, and other places. So the template of the tiny eco home communities is just super popular. Sorry, I'm rambling a little here from point to point, but we've really jumped from this is probably the most interest we've seen in communities that we develop in 10 years.
Great. Actually, Patrick, we are just about out of time, but before I let you go, why don't you let people know how they can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about the tiny homes, whether it's here in Belize or throughout Central America?
The email to use would be info@ecidevelopment.com, so info@ecidevelopment.com. We're more than happy to answer any of your questions, and look forward to hearing from everybody. It's an exciting time. I mean, we're seeing an awful lot of interest in a plan B for people to come down to this area, given everything that's going on in the U.S. and in Canada, and with the viral issue and all that. It's a tough time, but it's also an exciting time for people to come up with a plan B.
And Patrick's going to be joining me at the International Asset Protection Conference we have coming up here in about 10 days in Las Vegas. He'll be speaking, a lot more extensively about the tiny homes and have a lot of information. So if you're still thinking about joining us for the conference, and this is a subject that's interesting to you, I hope you'll be able to attend. We have both a live attendance, and we also have a live stream attendance for folks who really can't get to Las Vegas or don't want to venture out given the health challenges with coronavirus and what have you. So on that note, I want to thank you for joining me today on the Global Wealth Fortress Report, and we'll see you next time. Until then, I wish you health, I wish you happiness, and I wish you a wealth that can't be taken away from anyone else. See you next time. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining Joel Nagel and the Global Wealth Fortress Report, a whole new approach to asset protection and estate planning, so that now you can live the good life at a great price, where the sun never sets on your financial fortress.